All right, if you will open up to Nehemiah chapter 7. Eleanor, I know you tried. Did anybody else try to read chapter 7 in preparation for today? A couple people, yes. How many of you are just like, cannot wait for Nehemiah chapter 7 after reading that thing? Maybe you take a second to peruse it. You probably don't even need a second to look at this one and go, oh boy. What are we doing today, tough guy? Come on, circus boy, what's going on today? Well, I hope you're as excited as I am about Nehemiah chapter 7. I was telling Amy on the way home from church last Sunday, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do with chapter 7. That might just get absorbed into chapter 8, and we're just going to move on. Well, guess what? We're doing chapter 7 today. And yes, it is just as much a surprise to me as it is to you, I'm sure. But as I sat down to study this week, I couldn't help but think to myself that really this serves as such a wonderful transition to the next section of the book of Nehemiah, and it would be a shame to just gloss right over the top of it because it has some really important elements to it that I think we need to sit down, look at, and study as we begin this second section of Nehemiah. So what are these sections of Nehemiah? Chapters 1 through 6 was the rebuilding of the walls. We've spent the last 7 weeks, because we had 2 sermons in chapter 2, so the last 7 weeks we've spent studying those 6 chapters, and we saw all of the struggles and all of the challenges that Nehemiah faced, whether externally with Sanballat and company or internally in the infighting and the inroads that can often happen with people that love each other. All of the struggles, all of the trials and temptations and problems that Nehemiah faced in those 6 chapters we saw in 52 days. He finished the wall. And that's great. But there's more to the book of Nehemiah. Obviously, it doesn't stop after chapter 6. Chapter 7 through 10 is the second major section of the book of Nehemiah. Not only does he rebuild the walls, but he also reforms the people. There's something to be said about once the walls are built. That's a very physical structure, and I'm glad that God's name is honored by rebuilding the wall. I'm glad that the people of the city are safer as a result of building the walls, and there's a lot of benefits and luxury about having city walls, especially back in that day. But it's not enough. If you're going to try to deal with people in some way, you can't just have a wall and just say, well, you guys are on your own. It takes a whole lot more to that than just building these walls. And so now in chapters 7 through 10, the idea is to reform the people. And then once you have walls and you start to reform the people, in chapters 11, 12, and 13, in Nehemiah, we're going to see how you can reclaim the culture. Because once the walls are built and the hearts are secure, you can finally then start to reclaim a culture within people. This is where we're going in the book of Nehemiah. Chapter 7 is going to start this next major section. I got a story for you, though. After a violent storm one night, a large tree, which over the years had become a stately giant, was found lying across the pathway in a park. Nothing but a splintered stump was left. Closer examination showed that it was rotten at the core because thousands of tiny insects had eaten away at its heart. The weakness of that tree was not brought on by a sudden storm. It began the very moment the first insect nested within its bark. Have you ever seen a large tree and you think, wow, that tree, it ain't going anywhere? A storm comes by and knocks it over. And you're like, boy, no other trees fell down. I wonder what was wrong with that one. Why did that one fall? And you start to look at it, and just like this tree in the story here, you find termites or ants or beetles or other kinds of problems. Guys, it wasn't the storm really that took that tree down. That tree was dead a long time ago. And so many of us, the storms and seasons of life come upon us, and we fall down. And I'm telling you guys, many times, more often than not, it's not necessarily the storm's fault that you fell down. It's because somewhere in your heart a root of bitterness came up. It's because in your heart you've allowed something to seep in, to creep in, that has been festering. Maybe you just get really angry with people. Maybe you have such a sarcastic tone, nobody wants to talk to you. There's all kinds of problems that can seep into our hearts, and the storms of life can come along, and we get knocked down, and we think to ourselves, he got knocked down, really? Boy, he goes to church every Sunday, what's wrong with him, And we start to wonder and whisper. It wasn't the storm's fault, guys. You were dead internally a long time ago. So as we think about in Nehemiah reforming the people, I'm glad Nehemiah has the walls built. 52 days, that's great. But there's something to be said that if these enemies of Israel came pouring in, came rushing in, the city walls will do a little bit of stopping, and that's great. But these people need to be reformed in their hearts. There's something about these people that need to be reformed, and Nehemiah knows that. And he's got to go after their hearts. He's got to start to reform these people. And so as we read chapter 7, God wants you to see and feel the purity of his people. The special and unique thing about Israel is that God has always wanted them to be, wait for it, Israel. You ever notice that? God wants his people to be his people. He's never really been thrilled with when the Israelites would go and marry into other tribes, other people groups. He didn't want these half-breeds or anything weird or strange. He wanted Israel to be Israel, his people. Well, how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, chapter 7, Nehemiah has it in his heart to maintain the purity of these peoples. And we're going to see in verses 1 through 3 that he's going to have a charge to them. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to have some kind of charge for them. And then the big one, as we think about the purity of his people, verses 4 through 65. And we're not going to read all this one, guys. You can read this like at, 10 o'clock tonight when you can't sleep. You can read this list of names. It's a census of the people. And we're going to talk about why this is so important. We might not read all the names, and we can kind of make light of it and stuff like that. But it is important, and we're going to see how important it is. And then as we think about the purity of his people, verses 66 through 73, a contribution from the people. So a charge to the people, a census of the people, and a contribution from the people. He's going to start to expect something from them. So let's look at this, verses 1 through 3. Then it was when the wall was built and I had hung the doors, when the gatekeepers, the singers, and the Levites had been appointed, that I gave the charge of Jerusalem to my brother Hanai and Hananiah, the leader of the citadel, for he was a faithful man and feared God more than many. And I said to them, do not let the gates of Jerusalem be opened until the sun is hot, and while they stand guard, let them shut and bar the doors and appoint guards from among the inhabitants of Jerusalem, one at his watch and another in front of his house. So what is going on here? He's got this charge to the people. So the walls are done. He's hanging the gates. It's like the finish. Have you ever redone a room, and maybe you're redoing a bathroom, and you get the toilet in there, you got the shower in there, you got the basin in there, and walls are painted, and everything looks good, and you're just kind of missing just the trim, just the last little parts of the stuff. I know I'm talking way over my head on this remodeling stuff, but some of you guys know what I'm saying. I feel like I'm connecting a little bit. Anyway, this last little part. So the walls are done, but we need to hang the gates, and we need to hang some of these doors. And Nehemiah understands that it's just about done. So now what are we going to do? He's going to give a charge to these guys. So he gave charge of Jerusalem to his brother Hanai and to Hananiah. So why is he choosing these guys? Well, it's sheer nepotism. What a jerk this Nehemiah is to just use nepotism in his quest to decide who he's going to give charge of Jerusalem to. Is that what he did? By the way, does anybody know what nepotism is? Nepotism is when you decide that Napoleon did it back in the 1800s. When Napoleon was conquering different countries, he would have his brother be king of Spain. Not because his brother was good at being king, but because he was his brother. Well, shouldn't you choose somebody who's really good at being king to be king of Spain, Napoleon? No, he chose his brother. That's nepotism. Is that what Nehemiah is doing here? He's giving charge of the city to people just because it's his brother. Is that what he did? That is not what he did. So let me ask you guys this. As you think about the people that you surround yourself with, the things that are important in your life, because obviously Jerusalem, these walls, very important to Nehemiah. He gave up a lot to come to Jerusalem to build these walls. He gave up being the cupbearer for the most important man, most powerful man in all of the planet, King Artaxerxes of Persia. Gave everything up, went 1,000 miles away to a place he'd never been before. This was important to him. What's important to you? And the things that are important to you, we should have people that surround us that have the qualifications and characteristics of people like Hanai and Hananiah. For he was a faithful man and feared God more than many. How many people in your life can you say that about? I bet some of us could count them on one hand. That's not a lot. Are you actively looking for people in your life that are faithful to God, that put him first? It's very important for Nehemiah that he put these sorts of people in charge of this city. And to these people, he knew that he could depend on them, he could trust them, he could rely on them. There was a lot going on with this city. It's a newly fortified city. They're going to raise a lot of eyebrows. There's going to be a lot of people wanting to check this out. And Nehemiah could have said, you know what, I'm going to stay and I'm just going to do this myself, guys. I don't trust any of you yahoos. Just get out of the way. You know, I came 1,000 miles. I was the cupbearer, for crying out loud. You guys just need to get out the way and let me deal with this. I know there's going to be people coming in. I've been governor for a while now. So how about I just take care of this? He didn't do that. He appointed these people. He found them to be faithful. He was able to discern that about them. He realized their faithfulness, their dependability. He put them in charge of Jerusalem. And he says this, do not let the gates of Jerusalem be open until the sun is hot. And while they stand guard, let them shut and bar the doors and appoint guards from among the inhabitants of Jerusalem, one at his watch station and another in front of his own house. He says, you guys need to be very careful who you let in and out of this place. We just got done. You ever clean the kitchen and all of a sudden one of the kids comes in and you're like, I just cleaned that. Better put that bowl away when you're done with it. You know, don't you wish you just had somebody that could stand guard in the kitchen and say, oh, the bowl goes in the dishwasher? Because you know they're not going to. You need somebody faithful. You wish you could just do it yourself, but you've assigned somebody faithful to do it in your stead, to guard it, to make sure that it's going to be okay. We just got done building these walls 52 days in. You guys, I'm going to trust you guys to watch over these walls, to watch over this city. Don't just let anybody in. And we need to have people standing guard at the gates, at houses. We need to be ready. We're fortified. This is it, guys, and you have to be in charge. They needed to be in charge not only of the city, but also of their own lives. Who is responsible for your life? Anybody that says your spouse, you win. Is everybody awake? Everybody's awake. Okay, good. So it's not your spouse. Your spouse is not going to be the determining factor of how happy you are in this life, or how much joy you have, or what excitement that you experience, or anything like that. The only person that you can control in the midst of this life is you. That's right, yourself. Nehemiah recognized and understood the importance of these guys in the ministry that they were going to have, and he gave them charge over Jerusalem, the gates, the walls. They need to make sure that the only people coming in and out are authorized people. This is going to begin this idea of purity and maintaining a pure society and a pure system, a pure structure. And why was it so awfully important to God? And I'm going to make that claim just right up front. Why was it so important to God that the Jews stay the Jews? Why don't they just get to go and marry whomever they want and go wherever they want and have kids with whomever they want and marry whomever they want and just go wherever they want and settle wherever they want? Why is it so important to God that they maintain such a high standard of purity in their life? And I'll give you a hint, it's not the same reason God expects it from you. It's through the line of the Jews that the Messiah is going to come. And if we just start having these Jews just going everywhere, doing everything, marrying whomever they want, they're going to mess up the lines, and it's not going to be pure, and it's going to be a big nightmare and a big headache. So God wanted them to stay pure and faithful. And Nehemiah is going to come along now as a new standard bearer or new standard bringer about maintaining the purity of the nation. And he's doing this by charging them. You have to make sure that you're in control of who comes in and who goes out. It's not Artaxerxes' problem. It's your problem to maintain who comes into your life. You don't just let anybody in. You need to be able to discern people's intentions and try to figure out what do they want from you and how do they handle themselves, what kind of life do they lead, are they people that you want to have in your life? Guys, sometimes we allow all kinds of garbage into our brains and we don't even realize it, we don't even think twice about it, and all of a sudden we've got garbage just like a funnel right in. I heard somebody say one time, if you're ever unsure or not sure anything like this, the first time you see something on TV that you don't like, you turn it off for 2 hours. That's it. It's off. You hear something on the radio you don't like that's bad, it's got a cuss word or whatever is your standard, off for 2 hours. You're reading something, you're doing something, you're this, that, or the other thing, off for 2 hours. We as people have really forgotten the idea of maintaining purity of our own lives before God. He has called us and sanctified us to be to himself. Oh, my good theology students, what is sanctify? We read it, we sang it in the song today, didn't we, Shirley? Sanctify. What does that mean? To be set apart. We are set apart from sin to God to be more and more like him every day. It's a process. It takes time. It's not easy to do. And some days it's 3 steps forward, and the next day it's 2 steps back. And you know what? We're all a work in progress. Amen? Especially me. We're all a work in progress. But there is something to be said about maintaining a level of purity in our own lives. And Nehemiah had an issue of trying to maintain purity within the walls of this city. So starting in verse 4, now the city was large and spacious, but the people in it were few, and the houses were not rebuilt. Then God put it into my heart to gather the nobles, the rulers, the peoples, that they might be registered by genealogy. And I found a register of the genealogy of those who had come up in the first return, and found written in it. Okay, so what does he notice? What problem does he find here? So he's going around, he's going house to house, and he's like, boy, there's not a lot of people here. Who are these people that are here? You ever feel that way sometimes about church? Who are all these people? What are they all doing here? Don't we have some sort of register? Don't we have some place where all these people came from? Certainly we should have something, right? And he finds it. There is a register. There is a genealogy. There is a record of who everybody should be that's here. Now, why is this so important for the Jews? They love their genealogy. Now, some of us get, we can get on Ancestry.com and spend about the next month there and not even realize that much time has gone by. And I am one of those people, and I love that. I have done that before, and it's really fun to look at genealogy. My family's got a lot of genealogy work, and it's great. But as wonderful as some of us think genealogy is, the Jews take it to a whole nother level. I mean, another 14 levels, really. They want to know who's related to who. Have you ever read this in the Bible? It'll say so-and-so begat so-and-so, and somebody saying, and this person who's related to this person, he's the son of Kish, and on it goes, and they really want to know this stuff. It's because they want to maintain this level of purity. They want to know that who they're related to, who their ancestry is in fact Jewish. And they want records of it, and by golly, they have records of it. So as we think about maintaining a purity of the people, having and maintaining a correct and accurate genealogical record is important to them. And guess what they have? An accurate and up-to-date genealogical record. So it says, from the first return. What does he mean by this first return? Now, you guys remember when we studied Daniel, which is why Daniel was so cornerstone to the mix of understanding the Old Testament, in my opinion. We understand from studying Daniel that in 586 BC, the walls of Jerusalem finally fell under the hand of which king? Nebuchadnezzar. Everybody seemed to get it. Very good. Nebuchadnezzar came in and destroyed that thing. He took all those captives to Babylon. Daniel ends up being one of them with some of his buddies, and there's a big story with that, and we went through that in Daniel. Okay, so Jeremiah had prophesied that they would be in captivity for 70 years. Daniel understood that. We saw that in Daniel chapter 9. Okay, so after that captivity, they began to return to the homeland. There is a record of who went back to the homeland. Guess where it's at? Nehemiah chapter 7. This is the record. And if you guys want to read this, I'm telling you, knock yourselves out. You can read all of these names and how many have come and who they all are and what's going on with all of them. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And by the time you get all the way through it, there's almost 50,000 names. Well, not individual names. That would be probably longer than this whole book. But anyway, about 50,000 people by family name have come back to the land of Israel as a result of the return that Jeremiah had prophesied. And so it's just this census so that they could have a sense and understanding of who came back. And you know what? That's great. And they have that record. And it does show them that there is a purity within the people that they are now entrusted to maintain. The jump for us: do you have a level or standard of purity before God that you're supposed to maintain? If you don't know the answer to that question, it is yes. We all have a standard and measure of purity that we're supposed to maintain as His children. Some of us do a better job at that than others. Some of us don't do as good of a job as others. But it's all a part of the process that we go through, in a process that we call sanctification, the process of being made holy. We're more and more like God. And my hope, my trust, I hope for every one of us here is that we are all working towards that level of purity with God. We're eliminating those things that cause us to sin. We're eliminating those things that bring us down. We're surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up. We're surrounding ourselves with people that we're trying to disciple, and we're surrounding ourselves with people who are trying to disciple us. There's a purity that we need to maintain. These Israelites understood it on a physical level, and I hope we understand it on a spiritual level. By the time we get to verse 66, he kind of wraps up the genealogy. He says, altogether the whole assembly was 42,360, and then he adds in some servants and the Levites, and he goes on. He even adds in the number of donkeys, 8,136 donkeys. So as you think about them coming from Babylon back to Jerusalem and Israel, it's about one donkey for 7 people. It's a long walk. I think I do pretty good. I get about 40 miles in every week at work with my pedometer, and that's a lot for me. It's a long walk without an animal. 50,000 of them made that journey, and 1 out of every 7 had a donkey to ride. They were serious about going back. They were serious about reclaiming their land. They were serious about being in the land. And now they're getting to a point where Nehemiah is trying to reform these people, and he's reminding them, this is your heritage. This is where you came from. This is where we're going as a people. You need to follow this. You need to be aware of this. You have to be reminded of this. Sometimes we need that as people. We're trying to go somewhere. You ever get disillusioned? You ever feel weary, discouraged? I'm not sure, do I really want to do this anymore? Is this really necessary? Is this really important? I don't know. I'm getting bogged down in the details, and sometimes somebody needs to come along and kind of remind you of why you're here. I say this all the time to people at Fairway. Here's my Fairway story, Emma. All the time at Fairway, when people want to go full-time, because it doesn't take very long to be in full-time at Fairway, and you really start to get discouraged, your legs start to hurt. What am I doing here? I don't know why I'm doing. Tell me why. And I tell everybody, before you make that jump, you have to come to grips in your own mind. Why is it that you want to be full-time? And you can't say money. Don't ever make decisions based on money. You have to come to grips with why you're doing this. Is it because you have a family to feed? Because when your legs get hurt, it's been a long day. That's 40 miles a week on these old bones here. This is a lot of moving. And I'm sore. Sometimes I need to be reminded, this is how you feed your family. Get up. Get up. Maybe for some people it's because they are dreaming of a vacation. There's a lot of people that have Fairway as like a second job. They have one job, they're a teacher, and then at night maybe they'll work 15 hours a week, and they're getting really tired. And you know what I say to them? You're doing this because you're trying to save for retirement. You're trying to pay off a bill. There's a reason that you're here. Don't give up. You cannot give up. Keep moving forward. Sometimes we need to be reminded why we need to be moving forward. These Jews needed to be reminded that they have a history. God has not forsaken them. They have a future. They have a hope. That's what Jeremiah tells them. I have a hope and a future for you guys. It looks like it's all coming crashing down on you, but I have a hope. I have a future for you. Keep moving forward. Stay strong, stay pure, stay focused, and keep moving forward. You have a complete registry, a complete ancestry, complete genealogy. You guys have it. This is a pure system, a pure structure. Keep moving forward. Sometimes you need to be reminded why you need to move forward too. It's really tough to keep moving sometimes as people. Sometimes we get stuck down in a bog like that. And Nehemiah was here as he's reforming these people. He's reminding them through this census, through this charge, how to maintain their purity. So then in verses 66 through 73, this contribution from the people, these people, as they're maintaining their purity, as they're being reformed, they do something about it. And sometimes we ask for stuff. And it doesn't always have to be monetary. I don't like how we always go to financials, but sometimes it is. And in this case, and in verse 70, and some of the heads of the fathers' houses gave to the work. The governor gave to the treasury 1,000 gold drachmas, 50 basins, 530 priestly garments. And some of the heads of the fathers' houses gave to the treasury the work, 20,000 gold drachmas and 2,200 silver minas. And that which was the rest of the people gave was 20,000 gold drachmas, 2,000 silver minas, 67 priestly garments. So these people were investing into this work. It meant something to them. They were doing something about it. When you feel God working with you, using you, doing something with you, let me encourage you. Do something about it. Don't just say, oh, this is great. Oh, that was nice this morning. I'm glad it was nice. I'm glad it's good. I'm glad you're learning. But what can you do? What can you provide? How can you equip? what can you give back? We're not just going to be people who take. We need to be givers. You ever heard the old saying, there's two types of people in this world. There's givers and takers. As God's people, we need to be givers. And we give, and we give, and we give, and we give, and we give. These people understood that, and they gave, and they gave, and they gave, and they gave, and they gave 20,000 gold drachmas. And you're supposed to say, wow! How many gold drachmas? I see a bunch of blank stares. Everybody knows what of course, everybody knows what a drachma is, right? No. We still use that. No, we don't. Okay, so 1,000 gold drachmas from verse 70 is 19 pounds of gold. For comparison, they say, the academia nuts, 1 drachma is approximately 1 day's wage. 1,000 gold drachmas given by one set of people. 20,000 gold drachmas in verse 71. 375 pounds of gold. 2,000 silver minas, 2,500 pounds worth of silver. Guys, they didn't put in 13 pennies and just kind of hope for the best. They gave, and they gave, and they gave, and they probably gave until it hurt. How do we give? And again, I don't mean when this offering plate comes around and everybody's got $100 to put in there, right? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, are you giving proportionally for what's right for you and your family? These people gave and gave and gave and gave. This was something to them. This meant something to them, and they demonstrated it by their actions, their activity. How do you measure how thankful you are for what God is doing to and through you? And I bet for every one of us in here, it's going to be different. And you know what? That's okay. Because God made every one of you different. He made every one of you to be awesome. He made every one of you special and unique and gifted and treasured and valuable. And He wants to use you in that special of a way. So what are you going to do for Him since He made you like that? Don't say nothing or we're going to have it out. All right? These people gave and they gave and they gave. This contribution from the people signified that they're on board with what's going on. So the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers, some of the people, the Nephilim, and all Israel dwelt in their cities. When the 7th month came, the children of Israel were in their cities. Next week, we're going to get to chapter 8. We're going to continue on with the reforming of the people, and we're going to meet a new cat. And he's going to be great. And I'm going to encourage you to read chapter 8 for next week as we think about reforming the people. Let's pray.